What's going on, guys? Welcome back. I'm Fanny Pack Swag, and today we're going to be going over opping, specifically working on your flick shots, improving your flick shots with the op, and this could also be applied to the scout, but there's some differences, so I just kind of want to focus on the op itself, and we'll leave the scout out of this. As usual, if you like the video, go ahead and subscribe, drop a comment on what videos you would like to see in the future, drop a like as well. Just lets me know how you guys are feeling about the content that I'm coming out with. So when we're talking about flick shots with the op, we're going to get into this workshop map really quick. This is a good workshop map to download, not just for opping, but just for warming up and improving your aim in general. I usually use this for about 5 minutes every day. It's called Training Aim CSGO 2, as you can see on your screen. But I'll show you how we're going to use this in regards to opping. Now, with opping, flick shots are obviously the act of, let's say that I have my op and I'm holding an angle over here, but a guy comes out like relatively over here. I am pre-aiming this spot, but he comes out in a spot that I'm not expecting him to, so I have to move my mouse and be able to flick. Now, that's something that needs to be practiced. That's something that needs to be worked on, just like anything else in Counter-Strike or anything else just in life in general. You need to practice those things. And I think that there's better ways to practice this than there are others. You know, you want to make sure that if you are practicing, you're going to put in the time with something that you are getting a good return for your time, the most efficient return on investment, right? So we're inside of this workshop map, and we're going to stay at classic fast aiming. Size, I like to move the size a little bit. I'll show you what it kind of looks like with view model. Just for a second, I'm going to turn the duration to infinity. So you can see with 16R, that's a little bit wider than the typical view model, but you also have to account that it's not nearly as high as the entire view model. The whole point of training the flick shot, in my opinion, or at least getting warmed up and practicing it, is just getting yourself into the general area of where you want to flick. It doesn't need to be exactly what you were looking at or what you wanted to hit every time. Like, that would be nice, but that's just not how Counter-Strike works in general. Like, this game is not easy. So I think that's a fair compromise, that you have it a little bit wider, but it's not as tall, right? So you're just trying to get it into the general area. We're going to stop here. So I keep it at 16R. If you think that's a little bit too big, or if you think that's a little bit too easy and you're hitting that shot consistently, that's okay. You can change it to 12R. So when you change it to 12R, that's still a little bit wider than the view model. I think I did this at one point, and 10R is almost perfect for the view model size. Yeah, so that's pretty much the width of the view model body when it comes to pixels, but I don't really like that because that's really hard to hit with a flick shot whenever I'm going to come like right back here and I only have like less than half a second or half a second to hit it. You know, it just doesn't give you an accurate representation of how close you are or how consistent you're being. Okay, so we're going to move it to 16R. Shots to kill, obviously keeping it 1. Amount 25 if you want to keep it slow. I would recommend that you do like 50, 25 to 50. Anything after like 50, I just think you're kind of just wasting your time. But we just want to get warmed up. So I'm going to stick at 25. My delay between the targets popping up. So once a target is either number 1 shot or it expires, that is the delay period. I'm going to leave the delay period at 2 seconds because whenever you shoot, have to cock it back and then scope in again. And I think like you can turn it down to 1.75 or 1.5, but you're really pressing yourself for time at that point. We're just practicing on getting ourselves into the general area. You know, we're not trying to become pro overnight. So let's leave it at 2 seconds right there. And the static target duration right here, how long the target is going to stay up before it disappears, we're going to put it at 0.75 seconds. You can go down to 0.5. 0.5 seconds is a little bit better for rifles, and I'll show you why. So if you were to warm up in here over rifles, like the difference in timings that you're going to use is vast, and I'll show you what that looks like. But There we go. I don't play on 1920. This is just for recording purposes, so I feel a little off right now. But that makes more sense whenever you're trying to shoot like targets really fast and you're using like a machine gun or a pistol and you want to be able to switch between targets really quickly. We're not going to be doing that while we're opping. So we turn that back up to 2 seconds. Static target duration, I want to leave that at 0.75. All right, now that we have everything set up here, we're going to go to level 4. You can also do this on like level 3 if you want. The reason I like level 4 all the way at the back here is that you can basically see like this whole parameter right here is where the targets could pop up. So if you're starting in the middle, which you want to start in the middle just like every time for consistency's sake, you don't want to be like starting over here and then like trying to flick all the way over there. No, just start in the middle, and that's about as far as you would ever have to flick right there. But whenever you get a little bit closer, like you could potentially miss targets that are like in these corners, and they pop up in those corners more than you would think. Okay, so now we get started. You're usually going to miss that first target, and that's okay. But we just want to practice getting in that general area. Like I said, don't play on 1080. That's okay. This is a good exercise just for everybody to be able to get into the general area, get the cobwebs knocked out of your system. I think that this is a really good map that whenever you are just starting to play for the day, and let's say that you use the op very consistently, jump into this map and just put these settings up. It takes you 2 seconds to put those settings up, flick to a few targets, and then you can kind of exit out, because this isn't the only way that you want to practice flicking to shots. Targets are nice and everything, and it's nice that you can control the environment with the targets on how often they're going to pop up. And you can control a lot of variables, which is a nice thing about that workshop map. But I do think that there's something to be said about shooting actual player models as opposed to just targets. I think that even though the muscle memory and the mechanics are the same, it doesn't necessarily always translate the same. So there's another workshop map that I use. It's called fast aim / reflex training. We're going to jump into here really quick. And there's a totally different reason that I like this one. Not totally different, but every single map offers its own benefits. And you don't have to spend like 20 minutes in each of these maps. I'm not asking you to do that. Usually like a couple minutes here and there, just kind of get yourself all warmed up, right? Yep. Give weapon AWP. Oh, there we go. Okay. They've kind of changed the map a little bit. I'm going to use it as much. Okay. All right. So I'm in here. You want to make sure that you stay right in the middle. Don't move. Here, you can practice not only your flick shots, but your nose shots. You can practice flicking from outside of your scope. And the nice thing is you don't have to run around an entire map to see these bots. They run to you. So you spend 5 minutes in here. Just get yourself warmed up. But you're shooting at view models, or actual player models that are moving player models. So instead of just shooting at a static target and flicking to it, you're shooting at a dynamic target that is running at you, and sometimes they can do like little strafes, like move backwards, or they'll stop. and they're coming from all directions at all times. So you get to get warmed up really quickly, you know, just in a couple seconds or in a couple minutes. I got 15 kills. So that's a really good way to just warm up the flick shots there. And there's one more that I wanted to show you guys. So you can go into aimbots training here. And what I like to do is practice when you're holding an angle and somebody will shoulder peek to try and bait out the shot. There's a way that you can kind of set it up in aimbots to mimic that same situation and just kind of get yourself prepared for that. So let's grab the op. Where is it? There we go. Oh, I'm going to come over here. Speed. I think it's 3, I'm pretty sure. Long range. Or you can even do like moving target, like around there. Where did they put this? Peek and spray walls, that's right. So you can facilitate this, like if somebody was going to be shoulder peeking, right? It also allows you that if you want to peek out from the wall and hit a target that's moving, like... This is just kind of a good way to get yourself warmed up, improve your reaction time a little bit, so you can play around with that. I don't do that as often, but the other ways that you can kind of work on your flick shots as well that is effective is go into the community server browser and do retake. Obviously, my game is having some trouble right now connecting to the network, but I would recommend retake servers. And specifically why I recommend retake servers is that if you have an AWP, AWPs are not the greatest weapon for retakes. So you want to be practicing that, and you want to be able to practice retaking and flicking at the same time. That's going to be a huge win if you can effectively flick and retake sites consistently. I would say if you can do that more than 40% of the time, 35% of the time, you're sitting pretty, like you're doing really well. So just putting yourself into those scenarios and practicing those scenarios is going to pay dividends going forward. And you can always just go into regular DMs and practice your flick shots as well. I think the problem with regular DMs is that you are going to be holding angles a lot of the time. And that's not a bad thing, but if you specifically want to work on moving your mouse a certain amount of distance and becoming more consistent moving your mouse different distances, that this is going to be a better way to do it inside of workshop maps. And there's tons of these that you can use. These are just the ones, like those few that I use are just the ones that I recommend. I'm not saying that it's absolute gospel, because I know that there's specifically like op training maps here. So we're going to go into this training map, and you could use this if you wanted. I never really found that I liked this one too much, but to each their own. You know, I'll show it off. I'll give it the time of day. And I believe this is just working on 1v1s. Yeah. 1v1s with bots. At this point, though, like with these kind of maps, I think you might as well just get into a 1v1 server. That's another way that you can train this, but again, that's not really practicing your flick shots in my opinion a lot of the time, unless you're specifically doing it, and it's more time and work than it's worth at that point. You might as well just get into a server with bots or into a community deathmatch server. But that's what I got for you guys today. I will be coming out with more videos surrounding the op in the future, but how do you eat an elephant one bite at a time, right? So like I said at the beginning of the video, if you enjoyed the video, go ahead and subscribe, comment, on what you would like to see in the future. Like the video, just let me know how you guys are responding to this content. If there's anything specific that you would like to see, something that you're struggling with, I'll give you my 2 cents. I'll give you my opinion. All right, guys. Thanks for your time today. I hope you have a great day. Happy hunting. Happy